Test, test, test. Yeah, but you can hear the hum in the system. I mean, you can hear a low hum that was coming from somewhere, and that's just through the board.
Well, so that, and I noticed
Hi, Rebecca.
Sorry, it's Frank's anniversary.
Oh,
Huh? Well, I started last night, and then I did do a site visit, so, hopefully got through it. But not as much as I should have.
All right. Yeah, we're going to start the meeting here. Do whatever you're going to do when we get going.
Hand them out at that point.
Okay, seeing as how it's 6 o'clock, we're going to start. What? Yeah, give me a break. Going to start the September 18th meeting of the Community Development Board. And on the agenda, the first thing is to any changes in the agenda by anyone on staff or on the board. Seeing none, I'm looking for an approval of the August 21st minutes.
I vote to approve the minutes as for August 21st meeting.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Changes?
One correction, test. One correction to the minutes is page 8. Oh, thank you. And it was, I asked a question about whether or not the technology we were using was transferable to oil spills, not whether or not it was relevant to this, the project. So I was wondering if that could be corrected in the minutes. You want me to do it more properly? Okay, let's see. On page 8, it's mid-page. Norton asked about the cost of renting the equipment and if there was any concern about oil spills. But it should read, and if this equipment was used for oil spills.
Do you need a second?
Got it?
Okay.
Okay.
second it.
All those in favor of the change to the minutes of the August 21st meeting? Raise your hand, say aye. Okay, great. Any opposed? No. Continuing on. Now's the time for any communications from the public for items that are not on the agenda. We have only one item on the agenda, but we're willing to listen to anybody talk about anything else that's on their mind. No takers? Then we're going to move on to any unfinished business. I see we have none, unless anything's come up in the last 3 or 4 hours. Okay, now we're coming up to our first public hearing, WPP 25-05 and WPUD 25-02. Taylor Hill of Whitefish requesting a preliminary plat with a planned unit development to construct a 24-unit townhouse subdivision, and staff report can give us the full report on it. Thank you.
Okay, yes, so the request before you is a preliminary plat with a PUD. It is very echoey,
I
isn't
can't
it?
understand you.
We got some echo going on.
Do they know that? Should I keep going? Okay. This property has been the subject of several different city council approvals over the years.
Still can't hear.
Could you not use the mic, maybe? I don't know.
No, you-
I can't understand what you're saying
You
at all.
have to use the mic.
We have to use the mic to record the,
Yep. Everybody else turn off your mics. That'll help make sure it doesn't feedback.
testing, testing. How, is that better? It is a little better, isn't it? Eh. Well, we'll just proceed. Back in 1988, this property got a conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast. In 2003, the project was approved for a preliminary plat to develop a 23-unit residential project that also had a commercial component to it. The project was amended in 2005 to include 33 residential units and also maintained a commercial component to the project. That subdivision ultimately expired in 2010. So the applicant now is requesting an 8-lot subdivision, which is 24 townhome sublots with 1 detached, the castle property, as the existing single-family home on 2.85 acres. This is a density of 8.77 dwelling units per acre. The townhomes will be in 7 buildings. There are buildings with 4 units and buildings with 2 units. Access to the project will be off of West 10th Street. They will be dedicating an additional 10 to 15 feet of right-of-way because it is a substandard in width road. The north side of West 10th Street between Baker Avenue and the entrance will obtain full frontage improvements, including sidewalks, boulevards, street trees, street lights, and all the good stuff we like to get. A secondary gated emergency access will connect to the unimproved West 9th Street easement to the northwest of the project, connecting out to O'Brien Avenue. Within the development itself, it'll be accessed by a 20-foot wide looped private road that wraps around the castle property. There will be an overflow parking area in the northwest corner of the development. There's park, land, and open space central to the project, and then it goes towards the southeast corner of the project. Pedestrians will move through the site with internal pathway system that will connect between the internal private street and the external public streets. They are requesting 6 zoning deviations to implement the design of the project, and they're detailed on pages 2 and 3. They include setbacks, exempting the safety rail from the building height. The minimum sublot size will be around 2,000 square feet, which is permitted in the special provision section, but the zoning has a little bit larger in the WR2 of 3,600. And then calculating lot coverage across the entire site instead of on a lot-by-lot basis. Permitting this 20-foot wide, narrower street section. And then also having a 0-foot setback for 1 retaining wall that's adjacent to West 10th Street. In exchange for these zoning deviations, the applicant is proposing to pay a fee in lieu of 10% of the units, which is 2.4 units, to either construct 2 units at Depot Park townhomes plus a fee for the 0.4, or pay a fee instead of the construction of the units. Another community benefit, which I didn't describe in my staff report, that Craig is going to hopefully help describe, is stormwater, like a larger neighborhood community stormwater facility that they're going to contribute to. They are also, because they're providing this affordable housing aspect, they are eligible for 2 incentives. These don't require a special permission because they're just incentives for providing affordable housing. Is increasing the building height up to 40 feet where the standard is 35, and then having open space of less than 30%, you can go down to 20% if you're providing affordable housing, where the standard is 30. They are not requesting any subdivision variances. The property is at 900 and 910 Baker Avenue. It's directly to the east of the Moose Lodge, between the Moose Lodge and Baker Avenue. The zoning is WR2. It is surrounded by residential and commercial uses. It is connected to all public services and facilities. We did all the regular noticing to the neighbors and a sign on the property and the application online and in the pilot. We did receive, actually I got one right at 5 o'clock. We've got 6 letters. 4 of them were in support, and then 4 of them, well, I guess, because I got 6 more, and there was 2. I got 8 total letters. 2 of them were in your packet, and then a few others kind of trickled in after the packet went out. Folks that were concerned about the increase in density, changes to the neighborhood, traffic, and concerned about the requested zoning deviations. And all those letters are either on the dais in front of you or were part of your packet when that went out. We reviewed subdivisions according to the criteria and the regulations. The fire marshal has reviewed the project for conformance. There's a couple of hydrants, one's on Baker, one's on West 10th, and they'll be adding a couple more inside the project. The 20-foot wide looped private road is adequate for emergency services. They ran their trucks around the road and everything's gonna work well. The gated secondary emergency access is currently a dirt road. It's unimproved, it's 15 feet wide. And it connects out to O'Brien Avenue. And it does provide primary access to 3 homes. Staff is going to recommend a condition of approval to improve this easement to meet emergency service access. So they'll have to make it so the trucks can drive on it. And ensure the selected gate is suitable for emergency access and provide for long-term maintenance of this easement, including plowing through the gate in the wintertime. As far as urban wildland interface, there are a number of trees on the site. We have recommended a condition for a tree preservation plan to identify which trees can be saved. And then we want to make sure that those open spaces are properly mitigated throughout the year. That vegetation plan would be developed for the subdivision and reviewed by the fire marshal. The applicant did complete a traffic impact study. Our engineering standards only require one when it's 200 trips or more. This one came out at 198, but they did a study anyway. 40% of the trips will travel north on Baker and 30% will travel south. The intersection will continue to operate, of 10th and Baker will continue to operate at an acceptable level with maybe about a 1-second delay. And then at 13th and Baker, which can get pretty, with the 4-way stop there, this project at full build out will account for 0.3% of the total traffic volumes. So this project in and of itself is not going to cause problems. There's no mapped crucial wildlife habitat. The large open spaces will help maintain some of the patterns of the animals that move through there. We saw turkeys there this morning, but they're kind of everywhere as well. This area is an area mapped for possible groundwater, so they'll have to do some groundwater monitoring as part of their engineering plans. This property does slope. The highest point is right around where the castle is, and then it slopes down to Baker Avenue. There are some small areas that do exceed greater than 30%, but there was a roadway that was cut through there, and that's where some of those greater than 30% slopes, so they're man-made. Drainage is proposed to be directed towards the southeast corner, and again, the final design of all stormwater is like all the other engineering stuff would happen after preliminary plat is approved by council. Water and sewer are available. We've already talked about West 10th Street. Baker Avenue has a sidewalk boulevard and street trees that occasionally seem to get run over. So the staff is recommending a condition of approval to add streetlights because there are no streetlights along that particular section. Parkland is exempt for this project because they're providing more open space than what the parkland requirements are in the subdivision regulations. They're setting aside 0.63 acres as a homeowners association open space, which is 22% of the site, where our subdivision regulations would only require 0.174 acres. The property has not been used for agricultural purposes. It does have an urban land use designation. And then as far as the PUD overlay, just to hit some of those highlights of some of those standards, again, for open space being planned for residents, they're providing nice big open space areas for folks, and including trails throughout the site. This project is also in a great location to take advantage of neighborhood parks. There's Baki Reserve, the Riverside Park, Baker Park, and the city's trail system along the river. And then also it's very close to the wave. As far as the character of the existing neighborhood, certainly to the west, there are single-family homes on much larger lots, but there's also quite a bit of commercial in that area. This project is a bit of a buffer along Baker Avenue to the more single-family transition areas to the west. This project is an infill project, so they're not continuing the grid system. The streets, of course, will be upgraded to provide a nice streetscape along there. And then there's no public transit. The nearest snow bus stop is at the corner of 13th and Baker Avenue, so it's just a short little jaunt down there. They are not taking any advantage of any density bonuses. They're providing affordable housing as an incentive to the project. The buildings will not be monotonous or institutional, and they all have a common design theme that complements the castle building. So then staff does support the deviations to the zoning in exchange for the community benefit. In their application, they had found an older application that they were using, and the per unit fee has increased. And so we're going to recommend that the fee in lieu of housing be calculated at the time of final plat. I think here in the next council meeting, they're going to be looking at, they get updated annually. It's an annual fee that gets changed. So currently that fee is $375,443, so 2.4 units times that rate is what they would end up paying. But again, it would get calculated at final plat. Preliminary plat is good for 3 years, so in 3 years' time it could be a different fee. And then, let's see. So after evaluating the facts, staff has found that it generally complies with the evaluation criteria, and we are recommending approval subject to 18 conditions, including the zoning deviations. We would like to see a tree preservation plan and have only the trees removed in the right-of-way and where the utilities are getting installed. Have the trees come out on the lots at the time of building permit. We ask that they dedicate 10 to 15 feet of right-of-way along West 10th Street, and then make improvements to Baker Avenue, West 10th, and then the secondary emergency access according to what it is that the Public Works Director would like to see. Condition number 16, we put in pay a fee in lieu or help out with the snow lot, maybe build a couple of units, and this is what the applicant had proposed. Since we've kind of given that a little bit more thought, since the snow lot or the Depot Park townhomes could be quite a ways out, I think we would prefer to just leave it as a fee in lieu and maybe have that money earmarked for the Depot Park townhomes. Ultimately, it's the council's responsibility to decide where that money goes, but I think that would be our preference. And so condition number 16, we'd like to see it end after city council and strike the Oregon agreement in place to develop 2 units to the end of that sentence. So that would be one request we would make. And then the other community benefit was the kind of regional stormwater facility, and Craig was willing to talk about that if you'd like to learn more about that.
Okay. Any questions of the staff from the board? Okay.
I guess I would like to hear from Craig on the stormwater stuff, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You ready for me? And the applicant can talk about this more as well, but the city currently has a stormwater discharge point to the Whitefish River at West 7th Street on the east side of Baker Avenue. It's been troublesome for us for quite some time. There's no flow control or treatment on that existing discharge to the river. And so one of the opportunities that we have with this project is to forego the treatment on this property or on this specific project where they estimate roughly $50,000 worth of costs, and contribute that to the city to do a larger project at West 7th Street, which we estimate to be about $200,000 or so. And so we could use this project to, kind of as a catalyst to that project to pay for about 25% of the city's stormwater management project.
So what would be happening on this site to manage stormwater, since there's quite a long gap between 10th and 7th?
Yeah, so this site would collect stormwater and discharge it at the, pre-construction rates, but they wouldn't be required to do any treatment on that stormwater. That would be done at a kind of a regional facility within the easement that we have on West 7th Street.
What is the timeline for getting that 7th Street Regional Treatment Center going?
Well, I think with a contribution like this, we could likely budget for it next year.
Okay, this is the first I've ever heard of it, so that's interesting. That's good, I guess. I just have some concerns because it's such a steep piece of property. And you're saying there will be monitoring for what will be monitored so that we don't cause adjacent properties any damage?
Well, they'll still have an engineered stormwater management plan to make sure they collect and send stormwater to the existing facility. It's just they won't be required to do the treatment. They'll be contributing to a future treatment. It's not like we're saying, okay, for 50 grand, you don't have to do any stormwater management. It's simply that treatment component that they'll be contributing to a larger facility that'll treat, rather than 2.5 acres, it'll treat several hundred acres.
Can you explain what happens with treatment on site? I guess I didn't know how that works either. So is there...
Can you turn the volume up?
Rebecca, I think we should probably defer to the applicant to describe what they're proposing currently for stormwater management on the project. We don't require detailed engineering at this point in the process. That comes once the conditional use permit or the PUD or the approval is granted. Then they move into final engineering design. But I can tell you that the engineer.
Better without the mic. There's echo.
Let's just let the applicant talk about it.
Any other questions from the staff or of the staff? John, Phil, Valerie?
Can you just give me a refresher? What could be built on this property by right?
Getting a calculator. It's 39 units.
I thought
Did
she
she
was going to
answer us?
explain or were you okay? Yep. All right. Any other questions of staff?
I guess just one.
Okay.
It said that the fee in lieu was calculated at 10% of, what, 2.25 lots or whatever it is, or units.
It's 10% of the units. They're building 24, so it's 2.4.
So in dollar terms, what would that roughly come out to be? Do you know?
Oh my goodness. Can I borrow your calculator? Okay, using my friend's calculator here. Oh, I already calculated. At the current rate today, it's $901,063.20.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to open for public comment. And the first group we'll hear from is the applicant. If you want to approach the podium, state your name and address, and speak your piece. After the applicant finishes and we've talked with them, we'll be open for further public comment. And I want to encourage people to keep it to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Am I echoing? I don't think so. I think we're good. Thank you for your time. It's the one thing we cannot get more of, and that is time. So I promise to use it wisely. My name is Sherry Ross, and I'm the owner of this project, 900 Baker Avenue. I've been a Montana resident for over 20 years. And I'm going to share take a couple minutes. I'm going to share just a smidge about myself so you understand the intention behind this project and why it's taken 20 years in the making to make it happen. As you heard, people that owned the property before had multiple iterations in, and it never came to fruition. And a part of me believes there's a reason for that. And hopefully you'll find out why soon. I'm going to ask for a little bit of grace. I have multiple brain injuries, and so I have some notes that I need to look at. But also, anytime I get emotional, I have what's called leaky eye syndrome. So I'm going to ask for your understanding in advance. Thank you. I come from a career military family and was actually raised in Minnesota, part of the time in the city when my dad was overseas, and other part of the time on my grandparents' farm. It was an organic farm. My grandparents came over from Germany. And my first job was as an 8-year-old when I grew vegetables on my grandparents' farm, brought them into the city, and sold them on the street corner. I've had multiple jobs and a few businesses in my nearing 8 decades on this planet now. So, what do I do right now? I work in the integrated and holistic health business for people and animals. That's my world. I help people and animals in multiple aspects of their health from a holistic vantage point. I also work and have helped build multiple regenerative farms, regenerative agriculture farms. We are in the reforestation and conservation business as well. What is this project geared towards? It is geared towards people who want a cleaner way of life. It is geared towards people who have environmental and chemical sensitivities. It is geared towards people who want to avoid as many toxic chemicals as possible in their life. And this will be our project. What is my goal? My goal is to create a community within our Stumptown community where people can come and breathe clean air, and heal, because that's what I experienced when I came here, because I was one of those very sick people and not given much time to live on this planet. So why now and not before? I tried. It's not like we didn't try. We tried hard. but there weren't the right materials. They were still full of too many toxins. And if we did have materials we could use, they were way out of price range. That's one big piece. The other piece is the team. And this is where I might get emotional. I have been blessed to find a team that honors the soul of the land and at the same time has great respect and reverence for the people of this amazing community that I have privileged to call home. And this team is phenomenal. I have stretched them and stretched them and stretched them to work in ways that they have yet to work, and each time they surpass any expectations anyone could ever have. And they're here today, and you'll hear from them with the details. So what are some of the things that we've done already? As mentioned, we've had a traffic study done, and you find that it's going to have, in spite of, and I agree with a lot of the community, that 10th and Baker, that whole Baker Road from basically the post office on past the Wave is a flippin' nightmare. Trying to get in and out of there is just like, ugh. So I know that as a community, we've got things hopefully planned for that Wave intersection. But our study found that it was going to have minimal impact on that traffic. One of the areas that's really important to me are the trees. Losing these trees are going to be hard, really hard for me. A couple years ago when those bad straight line winds came through, I lost 4 of the largest trees on that property. And it was very painful. But taking them down, they found that they were beginning to be diseased inside, that were not showing any signs outwardly of this disease process. So maybe that's why Mother Nature took her course. We have an amazing arborist that has worked with the city before, and with our design team, we are striving to keep as many trees as possible. But the architect is a landscape architect that we are working closely with. These buildings are not going to be just plopped on the land. These buildings are going to be cradled by the land. And the designs that we have with the landscape, my hope is that you'll all find that it's one of the most beautiful places that you'll see. Other than, of course, all of our untouched, pristine land. The stormwater, we're going to have a sizable stormwater collection pond, which Brandon will speak to, down on the corner of 10th and Baker. It will be landscaped, it will be beautiful, but that's where the stormwater from the property will be collected. And then it will be run through the proper processes. That's Brandon's job. He'll talk to you about that. We have been in partnership with the city every step along the way, so that we do things right from the beginning instead of after the fact. Brandon has worked closely with the fire marshal so that the interior road meets, and the fire marshal is actually one of the people who helped Brandon work through that process to make sure that the fire marshal approves for that internal road, and we have his stamp of approval. We are going to be working with locally sourced workers, artisans, and materials. And I have an example here that we got. There are multiple different types of trees in this wood. These are all local to our area. They are taken from sustainably sourced forests, and Lauren will be addressing more of the regulations that are strict that I really enforce that they adhere to, so that everything is sustainable as we move forward with very little waste. You know, as I mentioned, I healed here unexpectedly. I came here because my horse came here for training. And his trainer was here, and he brought me here. I've traveled the world in my business. And no place ever felt like home, even though I grew up. And I could not understand this concept of all my friends growing up of homesick. I never had that feeling. When I came here, I knew homesick. Because every time I had to leave, I just started crying. And I couldn't figure out why, and I finally did. This is the first place of all the places in the world that I've worked that I feel like my soul is home. And I receive phone calls and referrals daily from people who are really, really sick. And they have no place to heal and no place to thrive. And we have that here. I don't want to add to the burden of this community. This is my home. It is a privilege for me to call this home. And I love it here. My goal is to create a community within this amazing community, a village, if you will. Everything is within walking distance. So my goal is to make it be a beautiful place so that the people of Whitefish, they can be proud of it, that this project will be a point of pride. It's not going to be something like anything you've seen, and our amazing team will share that with you. This has been, for, as you heard from Wendy, the city manager, this land has been multiple times brought, and it's never been completed. And I think it's because the time wasn't right. I really do. We have the team. I've never seen a team like this in my life that cares so much about the land and the people and has the skill that they have. We have the materials. We have the really good materials that fit my clean requirements. And we have a community that we are going to build and support, because pretty much almost everything that we do is going to come from our community here. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your grace with my emotion. And I'm hoping you'll say yes. So I don't know the rules now. I've never done this before, so you got to tell me what to do.
Anyone on the board have questions for the applicant?
Okay, this is Lauren. She's one of the lead architects. She's going to handle all the details.
All right.
Hi there. I am Lauren Sabula. I'm an architect at Cushing Terrell, and as Sherry mentioned, here to talk through kind of the design intent and the story behind the project, and then Brandon with Civil Solutions will also come up and talk through the engineering portion after me. So Wendy, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So as we're looking at a site, we always like to start with kind of the big picture, start with the site location. As Sherry mentioned, the site is in a great walkable location to town.
Me. Can we perhaps ask you questions?
Sure.
Rather than get a whole
We have,
review of what you're doing? Okay, go ahead.
We'll take questions after
I
if
see.
you need it. And so just kind of highlighting the site location and its great location in relation to this downtown Whitefish core, very walkable from the project site, and then also quite a few amenities from the site to the south, the Wave, grocery stores, other places nearby. Next slide, please, Wendy. And so next we can flip through these ones pretty quickly, just giving some site context, reminding everybody what the site looks like now. Neighboring buildings kind of along Baker, pretty commercial in nature along Baker itself. Those are some of the existing trees on the property as you're working up 10th Street. And then this is kind of viewing from the Moose Lodge, which is the adjacent neighbor to the west, back towards the site. You see the castle there. More trees on the property, looking down 10th Street. And again, kind of further down 10th, looking back towards Baker. just some site imagery here to give you some context, and then this is the neighbor to the north of the site. And then as we move on here into site analysis, this gives kind of the overall aerial picture of the site, again showing its relation on Baker and 10th right at the corner, the river there to the east. One of the main things here is the site topography. It's a very steep site, as you guys probably have seen. The castle sits at the very top of the site in kind of the flattest zone, and then slopes down towards Baker from there. This is showing kind of the road connections, primary road being Baker. The project access will come off of 10th Street and then kind of into the western portion of the site with the orange line highlighting kind of the walkable area. And then we always like to pay attention to where sunlight's coming in, make sure that we're highlighting that in the building location and bringing in kind of the best daylight into the spaces so that the homeowners have access to that. And then this highlights the views to the Whitefish Range to the north, Big Mountain, of course, and then to the Columbia Range to the east. And then getting into the design, sharing some precedent imagery here. This just kind of speaks to that neighborhood, kind of community village feel that Sherry was talking about, looking at kind of a European style, very informal, warm. We want the buildings to feel rooted in the ground and kind of connected to the landscape in a permanent nature. And so you'll see that as we kind of get through design imagery here, that we're tying back to these imageries here. This one shows kind of our first pass at some site studies, taking in the castle as kind of this primary feature on the site up on the hill. We always wanted to have a water feature and some paths connecting from the castle back towards Baker, and so you'll see that kind of staying consistent as the design moved forward, and then having the townhomes kind of radiate out around the castle with views outwards towards the mountains and our beautiful scenery, and then having kind of connected, landscaping and paths throughout the site. So here's where we have landed at this point on the site plan. You'll see there's 24 total townhome units. Most of them are divided up into quadplexes, buildings 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then at the northernmost part of the site there are 2 sets of duplexes, buildings 6 and 7, for 7 total structures. The castle will remain and kind of be preserved in its current historic state, and then there will be a water feature flowing down from it and some paths connecting back to Baker for pedestrian and bike use. And then kind of the other element that you'll see highlighted are the different types of units that, because the site is so sloped and the topography was kind of such a big feature, that impacted our design right off the bat. So kind of color-coded are the different unit types. We've got A-type units that'll be kind of at the flattest area and work up 3 stories maximum. As Wendy mentioned, our max building height allowed with the legacy incentives is 40 feet, and so we will be under that in all cases. And then the B and C-type units kind of stagger the floors over the topography, and so depending on their relationship to the roadway, you're either coming in and have a floor that steps down from the garage level, or you're coming in at the lowest level and working your way up.
just wondering, could you not use the microphone?
Is everybody's mics turned off?
No, I don't think so.
Denny, it has to be recorded. If it's not in the microphone, it doesn't get recorded. So.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Wendy, thank you. All right, so now moving into the design imagery. This kind of shows aerial view as you're looking into the site kind of from Baker, from the west looking in. Starts to highlight kind of that European village feel, shows where the paths are connecting and that loop road that carries through the site. You'll also start to see rooftop spaces. A lot of these buildings, though they're 3 stories, will step down on that upper level and kind of feel more like 2-story in nature because the rooftop takes up most of the upper level. Next one, please. This view would be kind of walking along Baker as you're looking up towards the property, starting to highlight some of the exterior materials here. There are some units that are not 2-story or are not 3-story and are actually 2-story, so you'll see some shorter ones there as we work through these images. Next one, please. Another image kind of at that central pathway that would tie back up to the castle way off in the distance. Next one, please. And this is kind of the opposite view of the site from the west looking east back towards Baker. Kind of if you were at the Moose Lodge looking over from the site. And then this is a street view, kind of gives kind of that view through that loop road, have some of that imagery we looked at originally, just giving kind of relation back to that. Also in exterior materials while we're here, looking at stone, stucco, some wood elements, different shingles, and as Sherry indicated, all of the materials will be kind of well vetted with her healthy materials lens in mind, so that the occupants have kind of good air quality, materials that are not toxic and like leaking into the space. She highlighted some wood elements that potentially will be used in the structure. The goal would be to source kind of local lumber and use wood for the main structure that is either SFI, Sustainable Forestry Initiative, or FSC, Forest Stewardship Council certified. And so both of those are very regulated, sustainable certifications on the wood front that we would be pursuing. And then kind of across the board, similarly with other materials, we'd be looking at healthy products. Next one, please. The rest of these are kind of just additional images. We can flip through these pretty quickly to give you kind of a better idea of the intent with the design. And a few more here. And then we do have the floor plans here. I don't need to give probably too many details on this, but if you're curious, we can talk about them. And with that, I will pass it off to Brandon to talk about the site and civil engineering. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry about the echo, you guys. Brandon Tice with Civil Solutions. So we work on the roads, the water, the sewer, the storm drainage. We had some comments or some questions about the storm water. So I wanted to kind of just describe that really quick. So we're gonna have the water flowing down the hill through a pipe collection system. And then when it gets down to the corner of 10th and Baker, we'll have a stormwater pond. And typically, before we send water to a pond, we send it through a pre-treatment device. It's a concrete structure called a hydrodynamic separator to try and pull some sediment out of the water before we put it in the pond. What we may do, if Public Works Department wants to participate with us, is to actually take that hydrodynamic separator off our project, contribute some money towards a larger one at the 7th and Baker intersection. That basin that discharges from the city streets to the river is a large basin. It's many, many city blocks. It goes way up 6th, 7th Street, all the way back up to emergency services, all the way up Baker. So we're doing this a lot in Kalispell right now, and we've done a little bit of it in Whitefish, where we're trying to do more regional stormwater treatment rather than on-site specific treatment. If we don't do this with the city, that's totally fine. We can do the hydrodynamic separator on our site and treat our stormwater before we send it to Baker. Regardless of where that hydrodynamic separator goes, our pond is gonna have storage on the bottom of it. We call it sediment storage. So the water's gonna have a second chance on our site to collect a bunch of sediment before it even gets to the city system. So, and I'm gonna if you guys have any questions on this, feel free to just send them my way right now, because my presentation is going to be pretty short, but I know that some of you might have some stormwater questions. Yeah, go for it.
The sediment buildup, where are you going to put the sediment as it aggregates? Where does it go next?
Yeah. So it precipitates out, whether it's in the pond or in the stormwater treatment device. It looks like a manhole, but the water spins. And about twice a year you go in there and you remove the sediment with a vacuum truck.
Okay.
So we have we'll have a stormwater maintenance plan. Will be part of our engineering package for the city to review and approve. And then we sign that document, or we tell the city that we will maintain these facilities. And we have these all over town. It's a pretty common practice to try and collect that sediment on site before it goes to the river. Heavy metals, hydrocarbons, things like that like to attach themselves to those sediment particles. So it's a pretty effective way to, improve the water quality of the river.
And do you test for toxins in the sediment?
We typically don't. The MS4 regulated communities, are 7 of them in Montana. They're the larger communities. They do quite a bit of testing on their stuff to see what they're capturing. So we have a pretty good feel on what these systems do in our community. We also have the proprietary information that comes from the companies that produce these products, and they test them all over the United States. So we have a pretty good idea of what they do.
And finally, where does that sediment end up ultimately? At the landfill?
Yeah, I believe it goes to the landfill because it's going to have, some heavy metals, some hydrocarbons and things like that. Is that correct, Craig, with your guys' maintenance plan? Yeah, landfill.
Thank you.
Yep. Rebecca?
So what's the advantage to you as a development group not to have the hydrodynamic separator on location, since this is a lot of impermeable surface on a very steep slope? And so I totally trust Craig, but I just wonder why this deal is being brokered.
Why we're,
What is the advantage to you to work with the city on the, I mean, I'm sure the city's gonna do this eventually anyways.
Right.
So I'm just wondering what the advantage of it is to you. You just have a smaller storm catchment or stormwater?
It's, I've been doing work with the city for over 20 years, and we've been doing a lot of roads over the years. And it's something that I saw Kalispell start doing with regional treatment systems, and I would like to see us start doing more of that in Whitefish. It's kind of a personal passion of mine, or something I want to start seeing more of in Whitefish. So it was just an idea that I had a few months ago, and we started talking about it, and we talked to Craig about it and Wendy about it, and it was something that kind of gained some traction. It's always better to spend stormwater treatment money in a regional sense rather than a lot by lot by lot basis. You get more bang for your buck. So that's where we're at with it. It's kind of a concession to the city. If they're interested, we're definitely willing to participate. If not, we can definitely take care of our stormwater on our site.
How does it set us up when we're required to meet federal guidelines for stormwater? Or is this part of that, compliant with the federal guidelines or not?
It's not necessarily geared towards meeting that, but if Whitefish ever did become an MS4 regulated community like Missoula and Kalispell, they have a bunch of benchmarks they have to meet every year. Having regional systems does help them meet those benchmarks. And there's a whole bunch of other components with the MS4, like education, leaf removal, all these different things that go with that. But this would be a step in the right direction to, basically meet some of those requirements for the MS4 if it ever did come to Whitefish. You're probably correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna,
I have one more question about the road. Why is there only curb on one side, and is there parking, on-street parking going to be allowed?
great question. So it's one of my talking points, actually. So the internal roads, we're gonna do a mix of asphalt, concrete strips to kind of break up the asphalt, and then also some pavers. So we're trying to do some different things in the paving area, or where we're using pavers, we'll have a little bit better infiltration in some of those areas. So it's a little bit more kind of a low impact design in that regard. The curb and gutter, we're only putting the curbs on the downhill side of the road. The roads will be cross sloped, just like we did at East 6th Street this summer, where the road slopes to the south. This road will do the same thing. It'll slope in one direction. So one side of the road will just be asphalt or concrete. We'll concrete to grass, and then that's the uphill side. And then the downhill side on the crown or the cross slope of the road will then have a curb that will collect the stormwater to the nearest inlet.
Why not curbs on both sides?
Just to kind of cut down on that urban look and feel, I guess. You know, we don't have a sidewalk on that side, so it's, you know, we're trying to do some different things to just look different than a typical city standard street. Now, 10th Street will have curb and gutter on both sides. We'll improve that all the way up to the top of the hill. We'll have a sidewalk on the north side with the boulevard, and then new streetlights as well. You bet. We're gonna add some visitor parking up at the top of the hill. We're not technically required to have that, but we do see a need for it. If somebody's having like a little get-together or something, they've got some extra space to park. One thing I wanted to mention is that all of our buildings, we're gonna extend an extra water line into each building so that we have fire protection and sprinklers in every single unit. That's something that we're doing for this project. The trees, we're gonna lose some trees, but we're gonna really try to keep as many of the trees along that interface of Baker Avenue. So if you look at our plan, we are setting back from Baker a fair amount to respect that setback off Baker, and we'll be able to keep the bulk of the trees we will be keeping will be along Baker. And we've hired a gentleman named Evan. He works for Forest Restoration. He's gonna be coming out and doing a tree inventory for us. And that gives us the size of the trees, the drip edge, the health of the trees, and that's gonna help us determine which trees are in good health, what their drip edges are, so we can plan accordingly to, you know, is this tree need to be removed? Is this tree gonna be saved, or is this a questionable tree? We'll just kind of see how it does. And that will be a tree preservation plan that we'll put together. It will be in lieu of our architectural drawings, our civil engineering drawings, and we'll submit that to the city as well, so that the city arborist can work with us on that during construction. That's about it. Water and sewer, they're pretty straightforward. You know, gravity sewer, there's no lift station. Water will come into the site off 10th Street. It'll have a loop that goes through. And then we're gonna stub out at the northwestern corner of our project, so that if it ever needs to be extended further to the east, it can. O'Brien Avenue, for example, back further to the west, has a small 1.5 inch diameter private water line right now. It's lacking fire hydrants, so hopefully someday that fire line or that water line can be extended to help that corridor out as well. Any questions for me, you guys?
It says retaining walls are at a 0-foot setback. So where are you putting the retaining walls, and why is there no setback?
Yeah, we've got a great graphic up here right now. At the northeastern corner of our project, we've got some units there that are closest to Baker. They're gonna have some retaining walls there, and those would not have the 0 offset. The ones that would have a 0 offset are the 4 units closest to 10th Street. We would have a short retaining wall that would be right along our property line to provide a at-grade patio space for the lower levels of those units. You can do, and Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you can do up to 2 feet up against the property line, and we're thinking these might be around 3 feet, maybe as much as 4 feet. And that's where we're asking for 4 feet, just to have a little bit of wiggle room there.
So they're going to be built exactly on the sidewalk that you're
No,
building?
they'll be on the property, the right-of-way line, which is set back about 6-8 feet from the sidewalk itself. So there'll be a strip between the sidewalk and the wall. It's just,
So this is similar to what's being built downtown with no property lines at all. You're kind of doing that with this project too along 10th?
what we're doing with this project holistically, globally, is that the outer limits of the project will meet and satisfy the setbacks for that lot if you were not subdividing it. If you just were gonna look at your side, front, and rear setbacks, where we're looking for deviations are more inside where we have the townhome units. How the setbacks apply to that loop road inside the development, and so on and so forth. It's more inside the development. And Eric can probably speak to that a little bit more too if needed. But if you have any specific questions, I can try to tackle them as well.
It's just such a big change for that parcel. I'm just trying to vision what it would be like to live with that there. And so our normal setbacks are not 0, and so I just am curious about how it will look from the street and from people walking by, but thank you.
Yes, so on Baker Avenue, for example, Baker Avenue has a 25-foot front yard setback, and all of our buildings stay out of that setback. They respect that setback. On 10th Street, that would be a side yard setback for 10 feet. Our buildings also respect that setback. And then on the north, you have the 2 duplexes up there, or 2 double townhomes. That'd be a side yard 10-foot setback, and we're observing that as well. So the buildings do meet the setback requirements on the outer limits of the project. It's more inside where we don't have any right-of-way lines inside. It's a private road. So that's where we're looking for the deviations. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Or would you be the person to address the concerns that have been expressed generally about traffic impact?
I believe I can, which concerns, I guess, in
Well, there were some in the
particular, sir?
comments and some of the letters that were submitted, at least one.
Traffic on Baker.
Yeah, and just generally, we know, sounds to me like the impact as studied would be around just under 200 trips.
Correct.
Could you go over that just to?
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Bob Ablin with Ablin Traffic Services and Helena did the traffic impact study for us. You know, early on in the project, we had a hunch it was going to be under the 200 trigger for a TIS, but we decided to do one anyways because we wanted to know what was going to happen. Baker Avenue is slated to be improved in the future. We're looking at a couple of southbound lanes potentially there, and then also potentially a street light, a signalized intersection at 13th and Baker. This project will add about 0.3% to the traffic volume of Baker as it currently sits at, well, at the time that the report was done. Craig Workman and I have chatted a little bit lately about, there's been some talk over the years about possibly doing a stop sign at 7th and Baker. It's something that's just been kicked around. We haven't studied it at all. We also talked earlier today about, you know, would there be any advantageous, would it be advantageous for the public to have a turn lane on 10th Street as you enter Baker coming down the hill, a left dedicated turn and then a straight and a right on the right-hand side of that? Something that we're definitely interested in looking at. It's kind of all hands on deck. If there's something we can do, you know, that's, you know, on our, near our job site, you know, near our project site, we would be interested in doing that. And we could probably even bring Bob Ablin in to even take a look at what a stop sign at 7th would look like, because that's a collector roadway on 7th coming into a minor arterial of Baker. You know, it could be something that could break the traffic up a little bit and make it a little bit more of a better experience on Baker.
So we really don't have a timeline on trying to, when Baker might become a 3-lane
We don't at
option.
this point.
But that on that 10th, that's a 60-foot right-of-way over there?
It's gonna be a 60-foot right of way. Right now, it's 40 feet and 40, I think it's 30 feet and 40 feet. And then we're dedicating extra right of way on our side to get it up to, I think, 50 and 45. So if there's development that happens on the south side, the city will get its full 60 at the end of the day.
And I wasn't quite clear, are there sidewalks on both sides of the street or just the south?
Just the north.
Just the north?
Just the north, yes, sir.
Okay. The traffic thing was of a concern to me. I went out and met with staff this morning and I've looked at it. Do you think it's going to be that left turn coming out off of 10th, you know, to cut cross traffic, like just another one down there on that, what we all recognize as probably about at its carrying capacity, right? I tried to turn left out of there this morning, and I had to wait about a minute for traffic to clear. It was about 10:30, 11, you know, so not a peak time, but not impossible. Just practically speaking, do you think that with the cars going in and out there, that'll be okay, that it'll work?
I do. I truly do. And I think there's going to be times of the day, you know, our rush hour periods where a left turn is going to be, you know, you're going to have to wait a little while at times. We're getting kind of used to that, I guess, around the valley, unfortunately. You know, I know on 93, a lot of times I don't turn left anymore. I think we were actually talked about this at the last meeting when we were talking about some of those projects on 93 last month. A lot of folks are just simply doing right turns now. This road does have a grid back to the east or back to the west up the hill where you can go back to 13th Flathead Avenue on O'Brien Bluffs, I believe is the name of the road. So there are a couple other ways for folks to get to a stop-controlled intersection, or folks might just take a right turn, go to 13th, take a left, and then go back into town that way. I think we will see some of that at certain times of the day, but like this time of the day, I think a left turn would be pretty comfortable.
And if you came out of your PUD, wanted to turn right, go up 10th, then you could turn right again, come out on 7th, and exit down Blanchard Way, right?
You sure could.
And that might be a quicker way for some people to just avoid all of that stuff
Sure.
too. I'm not sure. It may be a little bit longer drive, but maybe a lot less congested.
I think, I totally agree, and I think where I'm kind of big picture getting to is that there are options. If somebody's gonna go into town, they've got some different options, depending on the time of day it is, and their learning behavior of their driving over time.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right.
Know what the level of service grading is for this intersection and for 13th?
Not off the top of my head, Rebecca.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if staff knows that. But, okay, thanks.
John?
You mentioned that Baker may be slated for widening with 2 southbound lanes, and that this would add 23 feet, so to the width of Baker. And I don't see how it could come out of the east side of Baker, have to come out of your side, and that would chew up a lot of the setback that you have, right?
I haven't seen the typical sections for that plan yet. I was trying to find it in the transportation plan earlier tonight, but I couldn't. And maybe Craig might know more on what that entails, if that is going to fit in the existing Baker right-of-way with the use of retaining walls.
Sorry, what was the question? I'm still looking at level of service.
Okay.
Oh, the contraflow, no, we would need additional right-of-way in Baker Avenue to get that
Okay.
preferred 3-lane section in. Yeah, Baker Avenue right now, there's some wider areas, but the majority of it's only 60 feet of right-of-way, and so we'll need additional right-of-way to make that happen. Yes. No,
Would it
not
come
from this
from this?
project. It's actually further north on the project, on Baker Avenue.
Oh, okay. So by the time it got here, I'm sorry, by the time it got to this project, it would be 2 lanes?
No, there would be 3 lanes on Baker Avenue from 2nd to 13th.
So as I understand it, then with 23 feet of additional width for Baker, that would chew into your setback by about 23 feet. So you'd have, you mentioned retaining walls, you'd have to have retaining walls along the hill?
You know, not, without looking at the road drawings for what Baker could look like, an extra lane would be 10 to 12 foot of extra width for Baker, added on to what's there right now. So that would be maybe 5 feet on each side, if I was to guess. And, but I haven't looked at a typical section, what the road diet would be from right-of-way to right-of-way with that extra lane. We have had roads in Whitefish that we've done wider, like State Park Road, for example, that actually could have been probably close to 3 lanes if we wanted to do a center turn lane that would have fit in that top back of curb to top back of curb section, all of which would fit in a 60-foot right-of-way. So it just depends on how wide you make the lanes, if you keep the bike lanes, if you decide to do a shared path on one side or the other rather than a 5-foot sidewalk, which we have on each side of Baker right now. There's a lot of variables with that. I do believe you could get a 3-lane highway or a 3-lane road through a 60-foot right-of-way. It's just, you know, what amenities do we want to put on top of that as far as bike lanes with a boulevard for snow storage and shared use paths. Sorry, I didn't really keep going through my presentation, but I got just a couple more. I mean, the slides are pretty self-explanatory if anybody has any questions. You know, they're pretty straightforward. thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else from the applicant? From the applicant? If not, open to the public? Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
So I don't know who can answer this. I have a question about kind of like density and thought process around. So I come at this from kind of like a naturally affordable perspective. And when I look at this design, it's a beautiful design, but I see that those homes are not going to be nowhere near affordable, naturally affordable to people who already live here. And so I was just wondering if you could walk me through if you guys looked at any other densities to allow for more natural affordability. So I know that like by right there could be 39 units. You guys went with 30 or 24. Was there any thought process of having the townhomes smaller? And if not, can you talk about like what barriers exist to making that happen? Because this is a beautiful design, but it really doesn't fit for people who work here, who live here already. And like 79% of our community members commute out from out of town right now.
Good evening. My name's Eric Mulcahy with Sand Surveying. I'm the land use planner on this particular project. And there's probably a lot of answers to that particular question, but essentially it's the balance of trying to work with this site and the topography that we have, put roads in that meet grades, not just, I mean, we could bomb this site and put more units on it, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to try to save trees. We really are trying to preserve that Baker Avenue corridor, that beautiful treed corridor. And so we tried to push our buildings up the slope. And then another big factor is we've got a historical structure on this property that was the castle site. And so we're really tried to respect the yard space that was created around that, the retaining walls around that existing castle residence and its access, and not just overwhelm it. We did look at trying to put some apartments into the site and actually had some earlier concepts with some apartments, but then we were trying to figure out, also where do we park our people? So we've got 2 parking spaces per unit, and then we came up with the concept for a guest parking spot. And so basically we feel that the carrying capacity of this site is what we've put forward. And we're still, as you saw in the concept drawings, breaking these buildings, these townhomes, they're slipping as they move down the hill. So the common walls, the roof heights are varying. So it's just a balance. It's a tricky site. It's a site that I think people have an emotional connection to, and we didn't want to just destroy it.
And how much is the cost per, well, first, what are the square footages for each housing type? And then if you can talk through like what the cost per square footage, I know that you can't always do that this far out, but if there is any kind of like cost per square footage to build.
I would have to defer to our architect.
So in terms of kind of scale of the unit square footage wise, they range, kind of each one's a little bit different, but from like a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom, that's probably in kind of true space around 2,200 square feet, plus kind of some outdoor decks and things. And then up to the largest units are 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, about 4,000 square feet kind of interior space. So there's a pretty big range, and that kind of is due to the different, site topography and nature of them. In terms of like a true cost per square foot, we're in the process of working with the contractor to get pricing, but don't yet have true numbers on that yet.
I'll open this up for comments from the public.
My name's Tom Eisinger, and I was born and raised here. And all things change, it's inevitable. But however, not all change is good, and not all change fits. The proposed development on 10th Street does not align with the character of the neighborhood. And I believe it will have a detrimental effect on both the people who live here and the environment we value. The neighborhood character and zoning. This part of town is made up of large lots, typically half-acre to 2 or 3 acres, aside from O'Brien Bluffs. This is not a high-density area. The proposed development on this Castle House property would cram 24 additional residents, plus the existing structure into just 2.8 acres that is not in keeping with current zoning or with the spirit of the neighborhood. It seems like there may be efforts to rezone or bend the rules by possibly incentivizing approval. That's not how planning decisions should be made, especially when they permanently impact an established neighborhood. Traffic safety. Baker Avenue is already overloaded with traffic. The addition of potentially 50 or more cars from this development would make matters worse. Both 8th and 10th Street are already difficult to exit from, especially in the winter, when steep hills become dangerous funnels for sliding vehicles. Snow removal in this area is already slow and inconsistent. Furthermore, South O'Brien, especially around the S-curves, is often reduced to a single lane because of parked cars. Adding more traffic to this corridor, especially connecting O'Brien and Baker to a new subdivision, increases the danger for drivers, walkers, and cyclists. Pedestrian and environmental concerns. I see no mention of sidewalks, which I heard you, kind of. It was really hard to hear back here. But the lighting and pedestrian paths in this development proposal. This is concerning in a neighborhood where families walk regularly and wildlife is still very present. Increased density without infrastructure creates a dangerous condition for people and wildlife alike. The inadequate space for density. Let's be realistic. 24 new residents means at least 50 vehicles, and that's being conservative. On a 2-acre lot that amounts to housing, on a 2-acre lot, that amount of housing and parking simply doesn't fit without overcrowding, removing trees, or impacting drainage and aesthetics. This isn't just about squeezing in homes, it's about preserving the livability of the neighborhood and the land itself. And in conclusion, I'm not against growth, and when growth is done responsibly, it can be a good thing. But this proposal is not responsible. It does not respect the existing zoning, the limited infrastructure, or the historical character of the Castle House, which is on the historic registry. It does not respect the families who live here, many of whom have been part of Whitefish for generations. I urge the planning board to reject this proposal and look for development solutions that are more in harmony with the existing neighborhood. Thank you for your time. And I did collect 12 signatures from the immediate residents that are bordering this proposal that agree with this letter. And I have copies if you'd like. Thank you.
My name is Cinnamon Davis, and I'm at Tom's house probably at least 5 days a week. I work full-time in Kalispell, 5 nights a week, and I drive those roads all the time leaving because his house is in that neighborhood, And where I see the 2 3-story buildings he's putting are in front of 2 existing homes. One would be his, and that would totally 100% block their view. And they have all been there for over 20 years. And then the access that they say that they have access, they do not have an emergency access that they're claiming in their report. So after reading some of those things and then working with Tom, and it is very challenging. When you come out on O'Brien, I have to go through those S-curves and get down. It's down to a 1-lane road because the traffic's parked on both sides. And there's actually a couple spots where the snowplow has actually, not on my vehicle, but coming down through O'Brien, clipped people's side mirrors because that's too small. Now we've just added more traffic. And if you go out O'Brien the opposite way, you'll get to a point, it's actually a 1-lane road. That's another issue that extra traffic's gonna put onto O'Brien, not only talking about Baker. Can I hand these out to everybody? They're from Tom. Thank you all very much for your time.
Further public comment?
I'll be quick. My name is Denny Janou. I live on 9th Street, which I use O'Brien every day, and I use Baker every day also. Just a couple things. One is 3 stories. This seems like this is the first time we have 3 stories south of the river. So if this is going to be, Wendy, something which we can do, I do own some property south of the river, and let's go 3 stories and we can expand a lot more development. Number 2, I do wonder about all of the development which is going up by city services. I think, isn't there 77 units which may go up there? And so where is all this traffic going? I have to say that O'Brien on the south side, there is a lot of traffic, a lot of parked cars, and this is where commercial or emergency services is supposed to go if they're trying to hit 7th Street. So O'Brien is not, I think we're already at capacity. We already see all the fire trucks going down O'Brien when they're trying to hit 7th to hit the west side of town, west of 93. And then I also wonder about Baker, just because whenever there's a snow day, Baker is already backed up, and it's crazy just how busy Baker is already. And if we have 24 units and 77 units, and then whatever possible development which is going to happen next, where is all this traffic going to go? I think the buildings look beautiful, the layout looks beautiful, I like the European feel of it all, I thought that looked great, but I think we need a larger plan to accommodate all of this, because all of this on less than 3 acres, what about all the other open land which is there? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Todd Berglund. You asked for the address, I think. My home address is 29 Willowbrook Close, right over by the high school. Maybe more importantly, my business address is 844 Baker. I'm the white rectangle at the upper right-hand part of the diagram there, which is where I'm a family doctor. It's where my clinic is located. I've been there now for 5.5 years. And people have a right to buy land and develop it, no issue, with any of that. Just maybe a few thoughts from someone who is in that area, almost every day. I did see a mention in the application that that area wasn't, I may get the wording wrong, but wasn't a significant wildlife path or wildlife activity area. And I can just tell you, I'm there every day, and almost every day there are deer, and you mentioned the turkeys, the 6 or 8 turkeys walking right through, you know, my property to go down to the water and so on. So, you know, with this development, you got to figure that's all going to go away. Maybe it is what it is, but I sort of found myself thinking, if I understood on the application, maybe I didn't, but if I understood correctly, there was the 30% versus 20% open space, I think. And, you know, if I were the king of the world and something like this was being done, I would want to lean more toward a little more than a little less of the open space, just knowing how much wildlife is, you know, present there. So that's number one. Number two, I don't get the sense that this is supposed to be me putting questions to someone else, but one question that I would just have would be, if the exception because of the amount of affordable housing is granted, or if that deal happens, one thing I would just wonder is, okay, what's the black and white definition of whether the affordable housing actually ends up existing, and if it doesn't, what's the recourse, you know, from the city or whoever. Number three, and maybe this is something that I talked with somebody offline, but the plan, as I sort of see it, allows about 1 row of trees on the northeast as well as the sort of northern border of the rectangle where my property is. So just if there's a problem, if in cutting down a tree, you know, some other trees come with it onto my property or something like that, who do I talk to, you know, would be a question. And then the traffic, I found myself thinking when there was the talk about traffic on Baker, there are days when pulling out of my office onto Baker at around 5 or 5:30, it's hard to even make a right turn onto Baker. And the traffic from the stop sign where the wave is often backed up past my office there, the southbound traffic I'm talking about. And of course on a ski day, you know, it's worse. But what I found myself thinking was, I would bet you dollars to donuts, being in that area every day, that the people living in these areas aren't going to be using Baker primarily. They're going to be using O'Brien. And so the points that have been brought up about the traffic on O'Brien are very important because, you know, if you drive on O'Brien at all, which I do, you know, I pull out of my office and I take a ride on 10th and I go down O'Brien to like 13th if I'm going to Safeway or whatever. That's what those people are going to be doing that live there. And so the big question is, what happens to O'Brien? Is O'Brien made, you know, more suitable for heavier traffic and so on? Yeah. Well, right. I think that's really a key question here that I don't think we heard addressed. So yeah, those are, I think, the important points to. That's it. Thanks.
Hey, my name's Mark O'Brien. I live on 915 O'Brien Avenue. I'd echo the Baker Avenue traffic piece. It's been beaten to death, so I won't go into that. The O'Brien Avenue traffic piece, yes, after they come out and hand right on 10th, and then left onto O'Brien, and you hit the S curves where you get to the police station and whatnot. That's a pinch point and dangerous there already. But if you go right and you go, O'Brien turns into a one-way. That's essentially an alley at 8th Street, which is already a very dangerous intersection. I do believe there was a kid killed on a bike there in the last 30 years. Traffic's only gotten worse since then. I can't stand the faux European look. We're not Leavenworth, Washington. I think it's disgusting. I don't think Whitefish needs to be a fake European town. I know you're doing it to make it look like a castle because the historic records, you could pack more buildings in. just don't like it. That's my personal opinion. I'm opposed to the change in the ordinance for the height restriction. I think that just for this property, but also for anything south of the river, that just opens a can of worms for anybody who wants to go 40 feet. Why don't we go 50 on the next one? Not sure what that is. Again, I echo the same concerns about the payment in exchange for affordable housing, and would rather see actual affordable housing rather than a payment for some future mythical affordable housing. Lastly, I guess, would be in the plans it says there's easement, emergency access easement, and there's not. That's my property. Nobody's mentioned anything to me about needing access or an easement. There is no easement for this property along that private road that you're calling it. I 100% own that. So, yeah. That's pretty much the gist of my argument there. The traffic on O'Brien, I think, would be horrible. The 40-foot high buildings, I think, would be horrible for the neighborhood, for the view, for the precedent it sets. Thanks.
I have one question, if you don't mind, about what you just said about the emergency access. So you own property that is west of the fellow that spoke before you, is that right, between there and O'Brien?
I'm just south of Tom.
On this 15-foot easement you have here, if you look at this picture, on the left-hand picture, Mark's property is on the left-hand part of the picture, and my property is on the right-hand part of the picture. And that's our driveway.
And that road, if you look, is entirely on my property.
That's a private road.
So that's the back
Yeah.
gated chain thing that they're going to use for emergency egress?
That's what first I heard of it was today. Nobody's talked to me about needing an easement. There's a utility easement along that line, and then the neighbors have an easement by use. There's some old timber easements on there if you go back to 1904, I think. But there's no access easement for this property through my property.
Would it be okay to recognize Angie, our attorney?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, can we have a point of order? Can you let Wendy address that or Brandon address that? This isn't really back and forth with the audience, I'm sorry.
I apologize. Thank you.
Wendy, do you want to address that?
Can we finish all the public comment and then finish the public hearing, and then Brandon and I can
Is there
talk
any
about
further
that.
public comment?
I'll try and make it quick since we're running over. Paul Van Valkenburg. I live at 344 Sawtooth Drive. It's right off of O'Brien. It's where a lot of this traffic, when Baker backs up and they're going to take their emergency, it'll go to the neighborhood that doesn't have any sidewalks. Like O'Brien is not suitable for all of this additional traffic. I don't think that $900,000 for future affordable housing and $50,000 for stormwater is a substantial public benefit that justifies all the zoning exemptions. They're averaging lot coverage. They're 4,000 square foot townhomes, 7 bedrooms. I've never met somebody who has that house and only has 2 vehicles. I'm very suspicious that the 7 cars of parking that they have is going to allow for fire access. I think they know it because they're plumbing additional water to the building so they don't catch on fire. 20 feet is the minimum. It wouldn't meet our city standards for codes. I think it's also interesting that they're calling this a Baker project and they're using that as the primary setback, but all their access is from 10th Avenue. Let's see, traffic study, people have mentioned it, but March 4th and 5th, a Tuesday and Wednesday, is not an ideal time to conduct a traffic study to look at its true impact and see what it's going to do. I just encourage you to deny this PUD and approve something that's more consistent with existing WR2 zoning that doesn't require as many deviations. Thank you.
Further public comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment and open it up for discussion of the board.
Could we get that question clarified from the staff about the easement?
Yeah, either staff can or Brandon can. Do you want to, then? Eric, sorry.
We researched the easement in my office at Sand Surveying. There is easement on previous plats that are, and I don't have those plats with me. They're in my folder back at the office, but basically there's a plat, book 469, page 953, that shows the easement coming through this property and out to O'Brien. And then we also referenced it on our plat map that's in your packet that references another egress easement per book 241, page 841. So we've got easement. We don't own it. We have an easement to use it.
There's a Supreme Court case which holds that an easement must be by deed. Easements which appear on certificates of survey or plats don't convey anything. There must be a conveyance from one person to another. It must be a deed. So if you don't have a deed, I don't think you have an easement.
I don't know if there's a deed or not, and I'm not a judge or an attorney, so I can't answer that specifically, but we researched it in our office and feel that we've got access.
The co-owner of the property with me, my ex-wife, is a land use attorney, and there's no easement, there's no deed.
So this is just something that they'll have to sort out, you know, as they work through the process. Whether they have it now or they can obtain it for their, and again, it'll just be a secondary emergency gated access.
But Wendy, isn't this important for safety?
Yeah, this is part of their proposal to have this secondary emergency access. They've indicated that they have access, and they'll have to show us that they do have access.
But if they don't have access, doesn't that change the whole project?
Well, because they don't have access, if they find they don't have access, doesn't mean they can't obtain it. You can always obtain an easement from someone. Or not.
Or not. And if the owner refuses, there's nothing that can be done.
Would it be possible to postpone this until that's determined?
What do you think? Angie? Okay.
You could make it a condition of approval.
I have a question. The Moose Lodge
Name and
board is
address
right
for
on-
the record,
Name and
please.
address.
The Moose Lodge is right on the property.
Can you provide
line.
your name and address, please?
Mike Larkey, I'm the administrator at the Whitefish Moose Lodge. So why couldn't vehicles access the property through the parking lot at the Moose Lodge? I mean, it's got plenty of room, it's wide open. The only time it might have some problem would be on Merrymaker night. But on Merrymaker night, most of our patrons that come there are using the castle's parking lot. So my opinion is why couldn't you allow the emergency access through our parking lot?
Thank you. So, what do we do about this secondary egress out of the place?
I think let the applicant sort it out. I think they've got options.
Okay.
And you can make it a condition of approval, if you so choose.
All right.
But I don't think I think they can sort it out. It'll happen at the time of engineering plans.
Okay, then for now, I'm going to close the public comment and open it up to discussion from the board. Anyone? Or a motion? John?
Well, first of all, if I had a hat, I would take my hat off to the architect. I think these are some of the most beautiful townhouse drawings I've ever seen. Looks like France. It would be some of the best architecture in Whitefish. But I have problems with the project. I will read from Mr. Van Valkenburg's written comment, a couple of sections. First one says, this isn't a balanced project. It's a bundle of variances wrapped in a friendlier label. If these same requests came in as variances, they would fail the hardship test. The PUD process should not be used to hand out relief that can't be justified under the rules. I think I agree with that. This is a WR2 zone, and the project, for so many reasons, does not fit. It's just not consistent with the neighborhood, but the WR2 rules have to be bent too far, I think. And no, this is discussion. It can go either way. It could be a motion and then discussion, or discussion and then a motion.
There needs to be a motion and a second.
Okay, I've seen it go both ways. I'll move to deny the Taylor Hill proposal.
You need a second to discuss.
So a second? Okay.
Okay, then the second point is on the second page of Mr. Van Valkenburg's letter. Buildings 2 and 4, those are the two along Baker, are set back roughly 38 to 53 feet from Baker Avenue on a hillside that drops at about a 3-to-1 slope. From Baker, these structures will therefore read not as 35-foot high townhomes, but as buildings 48 to 56 feet tall, the equivalent of a 4-story wall. Along 10th, the 40-foot top row will stand more than 10 feet taller than neighboring houses and is already above the tree line. Once trees are lost, the mismatch will be undeniable. In the last paragraph, he says, this is the equivalent of a 57-foot behemoth towering above a street zoned for duplex homes. What else in Whitefish is built to loom over its neighbors to that degree? So the view up from Baker Avenue seems to me to be, towering structures above Baker Avenue, and I think that's inconsistent with the small town feel, which is one of the goals in the growth policy. It's mentioned in the staff report. And so I think this project is inconsistent with the growth policy and should be denied. I'm concerned that there's no affordable housing built in. There are no units on site that would be affordable. I was thinking maybe the units along Baker Avenue could be 2-story and affordable housing of, say, under 800 square feet. But whatever, and I'm also concerned about the loss of a lot of trees. But it's mainly the variances bundle and the inconsistency with small town feel that got my attention.
Further comments, discussion? Rebecca?
I concur. I agree that finding number 11 is not met, which reads, the character and qualities of existing neighborhoods are being preserved and protected because the castle is being maintained. Mature, healthy trees are being protected, and a landscaped area along Baker Avenue will be maintained. I don't think we'll be able to see the castle. I think most of the trees will be gone, And most of the houses in this area are single-family homes. And I feel like the impact on the streets will be large and very difficult to mitigate. So at this point, I'm going to second a denial.
Any other comments?
I guess I'll go. Since I've been on this board, I think this is probably the most difficult decision that I've faced personally. I think that there's a plus side and a minus side to this. On the plus side, you know, in one sense, you know, this is infill. This is a quality project. There will be money available for affordable housing approaching $1 million, which is not chicken feed. And just because we couldn't solve that problem on this lot doesn't mean that we couldn't on the Snow lot or elsewhere around town, or at least go towards solving that problem. So they haven't ignored it. And in exchange for that, on the minus side, we're looking at a variance that would allow them to go 3 stories with some of these units. One of the 3 stories sounds like will block the neighbor's view, and there certainly is a dispute about the emergency access easement to loop it out. I really wasn't aware of that even after my site visit today, through no fault of staff, of course, but just part of the learning process when you come into a hearing with an open mind. And that is a concern to me. I do think you need emergency egress. There will be a gate there, so people won't be using it unless there's an emergency. And I don't think any good neighbor would say, because there's an emergency, you can't cross my property. But I do think that that problem certainly has to be addressed, and I would favor making this that a condition of an approval, that easement be secured. And I echo what John said about is there has to be a transfer. So I am really on the fence here. I mean, with the traffic on Baker, you know, the problems we all know and recognize, I think the way what I've heard and the way I would characterize it is we are at capacity on Baker now. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that people would come out of there and turn right, go up to O'Brien, and then loop down that way as, you know, maybe a primary way people would address that. You know, we all find our way through these various things in the quickest way and the nearest light and all that. People who live there will do that. I have no reason to doubt what the neighbors are saying about that. The precedent apparently that this is setting for 3 stories, again, I hadn't thought about that before coming in the hearing. That is troubling to me. But on balance, I think I would have to say that despite the impact, I would view this project favorably. I think it is the kind of care and attention that, you know, a lot of good architects and engineers, when they get together to tackle and solve a problem, they try and do it. And, you know, echoing that sentiment on the plus side, you know, I don't want to discourage owners and professionals from coming in here, which looks like maybe not a best effort in all of our opinions, but certainly from a design standpoint, well thought out. And there have been concessions that, you know, they have made in exchange for these deviations from the zoning ordinance. So I don't think I would vote for denial. That's all. Thanks.
Valerie?
So I was feeling pretty conflicted about this one. As most folks on the board know, I'm really, really focused on housing and housing affordability. Natural housing affordability is a big one to me because I want people to have options outside of deed-restricted affordable housing, because there's plenty of people who don't fit into that deed restriction. And so I kind of had an internal battle while reading this document, because on one hand, it is one of the most beautiful projects. I think it's very thoughtful. It's walkable, which I'm a walkability nerd. The scale is human scale. The way in which the path or the road is going to be created, it just feels like, with how many meetings I have sat through in the last 5 years, I often hear people talk about how important these different elements are, and I do feel like that was really thoughtful in how this was designed. I also, as much as I want naturally affordable, and if there's any chance that you could possibly have any of the units be increased in density and lowered the size of the units, that would be like my dream, just to have a little bit more options for people. But that being said, I know what the gaps to fill affordable housing projects are in Whitefish for our nonprofit developers. They are facing huge gaps, and so it would feel really wrong to me to vote against this project for that reason, because I know how hard Housing Whitefish is working on many fronts right now to get people into housing. And so I think I will vote in support of this. And like I said, I just hope if there's any possibility for some naturally affordable in here, that you take that into account.
I'd like to say it's a beautifully designed proposal. I would like to add, though, that you had made a point of 2.4 units for affordable housing. I'd like to see if that could be rounded up to 3, because it's over 2, and that would be a great concession to make.
Are you voting?
If I would like to make a friendly amendment that I would vote for it if it was for 3 units of affordable housing instead of 2.4. No cash, but housing.
I don't think we can do that legally.
We have
Okay. I would still like to have 3 units. You cannot do that.
So you're going to have to decide if you're going to vote for or against.
Okay, I'd like to say something on that. I've thought about this quite a bit, and I think we could attach a condition that there be more affordable housing units. I know there's a formula, but we're departing from lots of formulas for WR2 zoning, and we can supersede a formula by our discretion in attaching a condition to the project.
John? Okay.
You guys, we have to do parliamentary procedure correctly. Everything goes through the chair. The chair recognizes each person. Mics are on. Well, we don't speak out of order, okay? So you can't just start talking. You have to be recognized by the chair. Like, I just started talking. That's not cool. Toby?
Okay.
Back to you.
Okay, I'd like to call the question, take a vote on this. All those in favor of the motion to deny, raise your hands. All those opposed, like sign. We have a tie. Fails.
Motion fails.
So it'll go to the council as no recommendation.
Okay. So this will go on to the city council with, that we,
You could also alternatively make a motion to approve and add conditions,
I can't understand you.
or add conditions. But
I think what he said is that an alternative would be that a motion to approve could come before the board and add conditions.
Does anyone have a motion to approve? No. Okay. So the application fails due to a tie. And do we have any other business on our agenda?
It doesn't fail.
A letter from Ryan Purdy.
It goes forward with no.
Can't get to it. Is there anything else?
Yeah, the application doesn't fail. It just moves to council with no recommendation.
No recommendation.
I can't understand, the echo is. Okay. So, all right, so then there's no recommendation made to the council, excuse me. And if there is any other further business, this letter?
I don't know if you want to talk about. I mean, you got a copy of a letter from Ryan Purdy in your packet. And then also at the Monday City Council meeting, your board got changed to the Planning Commission in compliance with the Montana Land Use Planning Act. That will go into effect in early November, so we're in compliance with state law.
Yeah.
There's also up on the dais a letter to you folks from Marty Brandt. She's been kind of participating in some of the long-range planning stuff. So that's, and I'll also forward that out so Whitney gets a copy of it. And then just as a reminder, we are sending out all information to you folks through your cityofwhitefish.gov email. So please, please, please look at that email. That is how we are communicating with you.
All right.
If you're struggling with your email, let us know. Actually, we have IT people right here. They could help you. I think they're giving Phil a temporary password so he can get logged in. So please use those.
Okay.
Will there be new name tags?
I suppose. And then we brought it up during the hearing, but you know, when we're doing public comment, and this happened at the last meeting as well, it is the public's opportunity to provide comment to you. It isn't the opportunity to have a dialogue with the public. If you have questions, you know, write those down, direct them to staff, direct them to the applicant. Public comment is one way.
I was out of order, and again, I apologize. Thank you for the correction.
No, and I mean, members of the public shouldn't be having a dialogue with each other as well.
Yeah.
Makes taking minutes extremely hard, and it's just not appropriate, so.
No, I
And
totally agree.
No, Scott, you're fine, but it's more the members of the public having conversations, and that makes
regarding
the record really, really messy.
the meetings for the Vision 2045?
Yeah, can I say
Sure.
a couple? I just kind of took some notes down when you guys were talking. Through the PUD process, people aren't asking for a variance. This is not a variance, it's a deviation to the zoning. They can ask for a deviation to zoning in exchange for a community benefit. A variance is when they're asking, they have a hardship. There's something on the property that's, you know, giving them a difficult time in building, like the 25-foot wide lots downtown. They can't meet the 10-foot side yard setbacks. Those are a variance, and there's a hardship. This is not that kind of situation. So that was an incorrect term. Also, your decisions, which are, again, are recommendations to the council, are not precedent setting. Every application needs to come before you and be reviewed on its own merits. So don't, when, you know, there's a concern that, oh, this is gonna be precedent setting for the entire town. Well, that's not true. Every application has to come in and show to you that they're meeting some sort of community benefit. And the building height is, those are some of those incentives that we gave out for folks that are providing affordable housing, so they don't even have to meet any sort of community benefit. We said, wow, if you're gonna provide 10% affordable housing, we'll give you 5 feet. 5 feet's not that much, but you know, for some people it makes a difference and makes a nicer looking building. So those items don't have to have any sort of review by the board, they're just automatically granted for the affordable housing. That's how that program was set up. So just a few things that.
And there's no limit on the number of stories in the city. It's a height limit, maximum height.
the height.
You can build, if you want 4-foot ceilings, I mean, that won't meet the code, but,
Yeah.
you know.
A hobbit house.
Okay.
Okay, those just.
So just one quick follow-up on that. So, was the difference, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask a question?
Yes, ask your question.
Thank you. On the height restrictions, did the added amount of height in this case mean the difference between a 2- and 3-story building?
I don't think so.
I mean, typical, you know, apartment might have an 8-foot ceiling. Most houses have 10 feet ceilings. Then you have, you know, structural, depending on the size of your floor joist, might be 12 to 14 inches. And then, you know, your roof pitch is going to determine how high your building's going to go. You know, more quality designs like they showed with a 12-12 pitch are going to be taller buildings. If it's a flat roof, you can put more stories in there. So there's a lot of differentiation on what you can do with that.
I was
Typically, a
asking
35-foot building, most, you know,
Pardon?
most of the buildings downtown are 35 feet. Some of them go up to 45 feet. You can get 3 stories in 35 feet. 40 feet is just 3 stories with a steeper pitch roof, but you're probably not going to get 4 stories in there.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Yes. Rebecca?
I was really shocked that we were actually, that
Yeah, I'm
Housing
about to
Whitefish had negotiated that. And I just find it really surprising that we would even I was surprised about the Housing Whitefish proposal, and I was wondering why we even entertained that when it's a whole separate entity.
They just started some early discussions with those folks and thought, you know, maybe this will help get the ball rolling, but it sounds like maybe it's not going to happen. So the cash is which is why I asked if you would change that condition to just a fee in lieu instead of, yeah. But they just started having some discussions. How could they help out?
Okay. And I just wanted to clarify that regarding the Vision 2045 meeting, it's going to be on October the 1st to review water and sewer. And
Yeah,
then,
we want to, I mean, Scott brought up at the city council meeting that at least some of you guys had talked about adding a second Vision Whitefish meeting. Right now it's scheduled for the 3rd Wednesdays. If you want to do the 1st Wednesday, in general that's available. The 1st Wednesday in October, that room is not available, but we can have a meeting in the Arches conference room. It might be much smaller. I don't know how much public comment's going to be, but assuming that enough of you are available to have a quorum, to have that meeting on October 1st, and that would be when we have scheduled the water and sewer and wastewater review.
Yes.
And then we are scheduling preliminary for November 5th, which is the 1st Wednesday in November, for that council conference room for the transportation element.
that's,
If you
That's
guys
what
are
I
all
was trying to
available and
say.
you're going to be able to be there, then we will continue to schedule that.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say, that it had been worked out. I've been talking back and forth with Alan about these things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into scheduling, staff available,
Yeah.
for the transportation element, we need Craig Workman here, things like that. So we're trying to work through all that stuff, but,
Okay.
and then we need a poll of members available for your next meeting, October 16th.
Who's available? I am.
Yeah.
So I have 1, 2, 3,
Mr. Chairman?
4, yes?
I think we should formalize the 1st and 3rd Wednesday as our meeting dates for the growth policy, so that there's no, motion to formalize the 1st and 3rd Wednesdays of each month as growth policy meetings.
First and third?
Yeah.
Sure.
At 6 o'clock?
For discussion, I have nothing because I haven't really been in on any discussions on this, but I think it's a good idea.
So just as someone who works a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. job, if those meetings are not necessary, it would be really helpful to not have to add an extra meeting to my week. That is just my personal capacity, but if it's necessary.
I think, is it the one on the 15th is canceled, right? So there won't
We'll
be
not
one
be having
on-
one October 15th.
So it'll be the 1st and then the 5th.
Yep.
So is there going to be one on October 15th?
Nope. I mean,
That's, I
There's
didn't
no
think
staff
so.
available for that. We have
Yeah, you're,
both the Montana Planning Conference and the League of Cities Conference.
yeah, you're gonna be out of town.
Most of us will be gone, so.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question about that, but I don't want to intrude on this discussion. So, are we going to take a vote on John's motion to formalize first and third Wednesdays?
All right. Vote, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. First and third Wednesdays?
Thanks, Mallory.
Okay, sorry. Okay, then, who's available for the meeting on October 1st? Okay, we're all here. And we'll follow up after that with the 15th and the 5th of November, or whenever it is? 16th? Oh,
So,
okay.
Mr. Chairman, my question relates
Yes.
to that. We met the consultants here. We looked at their timeline, and the time for public input is about a month before the three options start to get developed. And I was thinking that instead of foregoing our meeting mid-month in October, where staff would be absent, if we could have a work session, have some of the consultants online, simply for the purpose of being available to answer questions from the public during that one session, and to not take any actions or any votes or anything, but just simply to give the public an opportunity for kind of a one-on-one dialogue with consultants. I did ask about that. I think they would be willing to do that. But I recognize that, you know, if staff can't be here, that may be a concern to staff. So is there anyone that could come and give us the proper guidance, recognizing that it would be for the limited purpose of making the consultants sort of available within that 30-day window for a Q&A?
Yeah,
And I realize I'm throwing
I mean,
this
it's
at you.
difficult if staff's not here. I mean, we'd be the ones organizing the meeting, setting the meeting up, making sure everything's online. You know, without our availability, it makes it very difficult to host a meeting.
And I recognize that.
Yeah. So you're going to be out of town on the 16th when our,
I'm going to be in Billings, and Craig's going to be in Billings.
so our regular CDB meeting on the 16th, like Thursday.
Wendy
be
will be
here?
there for that.
Okay. All right.
Would it be possible to have them come in as part of that Thursday meeting?
We'd have to look at our schedule and talk to the consultant, see what their availability is. I mean, we have not discussed that with them at all as part of our scope of work.
I realize I'm bringing this up
You know,
cold.
we have a scope of work with them and how it's set up, and so we'd have to bring that up, you know.
Well, I guess I just asked that if we could do that on the Thursday as a, you know, a part of the agenda that we could.
You know, part of this is, just kind of behind schedule on this stuff, and we have a timeline that we have to get all this stuff done in order to have it adopted by May. So it's very much a fast track with getting through this land use element, which is why everything's kind of pushed together. We're going to have another public visioning meeting in November, and then maybe 2 in November or 1 in November and early December to try to get through this stuff. That's why, we wanted to have some time for them to meet with you while they're here this week, but it just didn't work out with their flight schedules.
I think what Scott's proposing is basically how we started the process of there was a workshop at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked to them about what the next steps are. Everything was focused on these visioning sessions, yesterday and the day before.
Yeah.
And, we have to work with them how the next phase is going to go, what the next workshop's going to look like, how we're going to put all those things together. We haven't even gotten that far yet with them. And so everything was focused on getting these things before the public because we needed to get this stuff done as soon as we possibly could. We just signed their contract last week, right? We barely had any time to talk to them. So, it might be a little premature to talk
right.
to them, but we would
Mr.
definitely like to schedule some time for you
keep us
guys
in-
to have a dialogue with them. I'm
keep
just
us-
not sure when that's going to be.
Keep us informed.
Mr.
John?
Chairman, I'd like to move that we schedule a meeting for Wednesday, October 22nd. That would give us our second meeting in October. And we have a lot to do.
We have a potential problem in that I will be out of town on the 22nd, and there's a good possibility that Whitney will be out of town on the 22nd. And that's why these other meetings have been coming up and down and left and right, because of the availability of your chair and vice chair.
And staff, so I mean.
Yeah, and I don't know
But,
about
you
the
know,
staff.
You know, we're on schedule right now. You guys, the next thing that you guys have to work on is the end of the public facilities element. Hopefully that won't be too controversial. We'll get that done on October 1st. The transportation plan, we're expecting more input on that one, so, you know, there's gonna be more opportunity to talk to that,
November
but
5th.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what other
Mr.
topics we
Chairman?
would discuss between now and then.
I'm particularly concerned because we need to work more on the drafts that we have for economic development and hazards. So I know this is a concern of Whitney's. So I move to continue the discussion of economics development and hazards to the next meeting, just to make it clear that we're going to be discussing that. No.
Those are done.
No.
Yes.
We adopted the Heart of Whitefish version on May 21st, and we made changes to that in August, on August 20th. But in the meantime, changes were made to the version of economic development after we approved it. And we have to sort this out. This is a serious matter, and we're going to need time to sort this out. We've got three different forms of red changes. We don't have dates on changes. It's really a confusing mess, and it's going to take some board time to figure this out. We can't have meetings in between these formal meetings to figure things out, because that's not allowed by law, for good reasons. So we need some more time to actually work on this. So how about the 29th of October?
Same case?
You're gone?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Whitney could be there, maybe we should set it for that.
The ensuing meetings here are all dependent on mine and Whitney's availability.
Yeah.
And right now, she doesn't know her availability. I know exactly when I'm going to be in town.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
So John, we just had the meeting with the consultants for the land use chapter, and during that meeting, Alan kind of outlined when all of these chapters that you guys have already kind of closed for now, will be coming forward for public review and council. So we will have another opportunity to see everything, and I specifically asked, how do we make changes? And he said, later we can make changes, but they want to get everything kind of coalesced and done right now, and then we can tweak it once it gets to the council level, and once it gets to the council level, we will have work sessions. So that's when you guys as board members could show up and
Well, we also will have public hearings on the
and
document
public hearings.
here for the planning board.
From the-
We'll have at least,
from
I
the
think,
staff.
probably 2 work sessions.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
We should be discussing this among the board, and you should be recognizing people if they wish to speak. So
Okay.
yes, this is may I continue?
Yes.
Okay, this is a serious problem. Changes were made after we adopted the May 21st version, and that's not acceptable. We have to look at those changes and at least vote on them. So we need an extra meeting or two to iron this out. There are also problems with the way the hazards provisions that were discussed during the meeting got set down in writing. So apparently there's also problems there. So we need extra meetings to do this. And the bigger point is that we cannot leave this all to the end. If we're doing this in February or March, it's guaranteed if we have to spend 2 extra weeks doing something, that is 2 weeks of delay. If we can call an extra meeting now in October or November, we're not slowing down the process. So I think we should seriously consider having these extra meetings, and we've set up the first and third Wednesdays, but we're running into problems scheduling. So I just want to make clear that we are going to be discussing this.
That's, well, the scheduling is the problem right now. And I think that if we're if we're going to schedule additional meetings, at this point in time, I think they're going to be in November.
Well, fair enough.
So, yes, Rebecca? Fine with me. I'm going to say that we've concluded business. Do we need a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
I think it will get, we will have,
Well, apparently got some time in November.